Well, again, I wanted to just thank everyone for coming tonight. Uh, this is a joint study session with the Town Council and Plan Commission. We are with our incredible consultant team here presenting and sharing with you the results of our existing conditions report. If you haven't gotten up for pizza, you guys come grab something to eat. Good to see you. And I'm hoping that you saw stuff in this report that you were like, oh, of course, I know exactly, I knew that before I read it. And then you're going to see some stuff that you probably never actually kind of correlated or put together and got to know the community a little bit better. So thanks for coming. Mayor LaKine wanted to say some words. Let's just get going.
No, just glad that this is the second time that we've done a joint session. We should be doing these as frequently as possible and when there's a requirement, especially during the comp plan stuff. So I'm glad that everybody was able to get it. Are we expecting more? I don't know if Marco and Ken, I mean, we know Chad is in New Jersey. Is he logging in for this? He's online? He's on. Yep.
I am online.
Are you eating New York pizza?
I had real pizza yesterday, so not tonight.
Oh.
Ken is on his way.
Okay. Any other planning?
Danny's not gonna be here, so
Okay.
we won't have Danny tonight, but I think we've got who's coming for now, and whoever's joining, that's okay too.
Just gonna get my laptop, it's okay. So thanks again for coming and,
Well, I know what they can do before we get going too far. Marion. Sorry, let's put it out there right now. She's our new senior planner. I'm sure you'll get a chance to talk to her, plan commission, you're gonna be living with her, town council. See if she can, share with her experience. I'm super excited to have her. She's got a really great background that's gonna help us continue to move forward in our plan commission, and she smiles, so that's one more person in our department who smiles, so welcome.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So take it away, Andy, it's all yours.
Okay, everyone. Well, first, thank you for all sitting in on this special session. And I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know we do have a time limit because there's a real town council meeting later tonight, so we'll kick things off. A couple members of the team are still trying to use the Teams link to join virtually. And so that leads me to my next thank you for allowing and facilitating us to do this virtually. I look forward to our next visit down there very much, but it won't be for a few months, and we'll touch on that in a bit. Have the pleasure of meeting most of you and have just enjoyed our time together very much. I'm Andy Cross, a senior planner with the Lakota Group, and the project manager for the comprehensive plan update. And I will let the members of my team who have been able to join the meeting here introduce themselves as well. Alexis, won't you please start?
Yeah, hi. Good to talk to many of you again. But my name is Alexis Stein, and I am a planner and a designer at the Lakota.
And Ruth. All right. Ruth Rollins is on, and she is our transportation specialist. And so she will be summarizing some of the key findings from the existing conditions report with you tonight. Andrew, are you on? Can you introduce yourself to the team? Not quite yet. Andrew Regnery is with V3. He and Noah Nemers are our civil and stormwater engineers and are just incredible at what they do. So not only are they working on the comprehensive plan with us, they are also with V3 helping run the stormwater management update. And that's a project that actually dovetails really well with the comprehensive plan. So we're really lucky to have them on the team as well. Hey, Ruth, there you are. Won't you please introduce yourself to the group?
I will. Thank you, Andy. I was trying to unmute and put my camera on and it wasn't working. So very nice to attend tonight's meeting. It is a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to work with this team and with the town. And I am the transportation planning and engineering consultant on this project. So nice to be here tonight. Thank you.
Right. Okay, let me see here. What I would like to do is, one moment. Okay, what I would like to do is share my screen and share the presentation I prepared with everybody. Would that be okay?
Yes, you're good. They're all saying it's your show.
Okay, sounds good. And Dan, if I could trouble you to please save some pizza for the consulting team.
I absolutely will.
Okay. Oh, great. Well, here we are. And just by show of nods, have you all had a chance to look through or see the existing conditions report? Okay, good. Thank you. That's a great background for us. So what I'd like to do is just spend about 20 minutes or so, maybe a little bit more, just going over the chapters of the report, sharing some key findings with you from our team of expert planners in our various fields. And as you all, to my members of the team, as you all join on, if you are on, Tony, I see you're on, just go ahead and introduce yourself to the crew when you have a chance to speak. So after we go through our sections, I'd love to talk to you guys about it and just see if you have any questions or if anything surprised you. So what is the existing conditions report? It is the summary of our initial findings and the end of phase 1 of the comprehensive planning process. And the way I like to describe it is this: before we can start mapping a path forward together, we all need to agree on where we're starting. So think of this report as a shared starting point. Here's where we are now. And through all the planning documents I've read that Monument has had prepared over the last 20 years, I don't think anything really at this level of detail and thoroughness has been created before. So it's really exciting to have all this information in one place. So to those of you in the audience, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, please do hop on the project website and look at it. It's long, but it's really, really interesting. We put a lot of work into it, and I'm just thrilled with how it turned out. So here, the bullet points you see on this screen are really the driving elements of the report. And most initially, look at that last bullet point, the initial observations and recommendations. And these were all agreed on, reviewed and agreed on, not only by staff and some town leadership, but also the steering committee, and they will play an essential role in informing the next step of the comprehensive planning process, and we'll talk about that. I said it was a big document. I wasn't kidding. Look at all these chapters, because there's a lot to talk about. I mean, you're familiar with the depth and the breadth of a comprehensive plan. Well, this is the document that begins informing every element of those depths. And so you can see here that we covered really a heck of a lot. And so, a different member, that's too much for just one Andy Cross to cover. So of course, we're using a panel of experts in different fields. Andrew, Tony here with SB Friedman, Fran, Andrew, Ruth, to cover these separate sections because they're experts at what they do. So let's talk about public engagement. I'd really like to share with you guys the extent and the lengths we've gone to and are still ongoing to engage the public, because this really is a community-driven plan. Alexis, won't you touch on this for us?
Yeah, so just like Andy said, community engagement is really an integral part of the planning process. We want to make sure that.
Hey, Alexis,
Yeah.
I need you to kind of scream, because we can barely hear you.
Oh, you
Kinda why
can't
I'm
hear
looking-
me?
So barely. If you could talk louder or yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Is it a little bit better? Okay, I've been having this issue all day today. Okay, sorry about that. I will get really close to the computer. It's an integral part of the planning process. We want to make sure that our goals, our strategies are informed by what the community wants and needs. And some of you may have participated in some of our engagement events or may have participated in the survey. But we started out with focus group meetings, talking to key stakeholders from organizations, schools, and other key stakeholder groups. We also held a Monument Conversations meeting where we invited the community in to talk about key topics. Well, okay, Andy.
Oh, Alexis, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I'll just zoom through this. We also had a survey It mirrored the community meeting, the questions that were asked. We've had more than 2 pop-up events at this point, have gotten a lot of great information. And this will continue on throughout the process. Like Andy said, we have some engagement coming up in a couple months. All right. Some of you I saw had a chance to look at the document. Part of that document is just taking a look at what people identified as strengths and assets, and then concerns and challenges. And then in the document, we really deep dive into themes, what people want. But just touching a little bit on the strengths here, folks love the small town character and everything that comes along with that. So the sense of community, the safe environment, the historic downtown charm, community events and traditions. They just love it. They also love the location of Monument. Lots of access to the outdoors, also lots of access to Denver, Colorado Springs. And then a lot of the concerns are about protecting that. People understand that Monument is going to grow. They just want to protect the character of Monument as it does grow. They want to make sure that infrastructure is keeping up with community growth, and that there's not too much congestion going forward. Want to make sure schools continue to have capacity and resources, etc. And like I said, you can deep dive into these challenges and strengths, as well as some of the themes like an activated community core, enhanced identity for the community. That's all in the report. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. And so let's get into some of the real nitty-grit research about demographics and job growth. And to do this, I'd like to introduce my friends and colleagues, Fran LaFour-Rude and Tony Canepa. Won't you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, everyone. I'm Fran Rude. I'm a partner with SB Friedman. Tony Canepa is my colleague here. He's a senior associate with the firm. We wanted to give just a quick overview of some of the work that we did. We really focused on the demographic and market analysis. There's a lot more in the existing conditions report. Today, we'll give just a couple of highlights. We really wanted to focus in on some of the demographic shifts that are happening. Alexis pointed to a lot of the assets and amenities that we find in Monument, and that has really led to really rapid growth, as you've all experienced within the town. So population actually doubled since 2010. You've added 6,200 new residents and about 2,200 new households over that time. When we took a closer look at where these new residents and households are coming from, we saw that most folks are actually coming from another Colorado county or from out of state rather than moving within El Paso County. And that is, we actually see a bit of a difference in Monument compared to the county and unincorporated Monument, and this attraction of folks from outside of the region and outside of the state. So we're bringing in new folks who are not necessarily as familiar with the local context. And these folks also have tended to be older and wealthier. 44% of the population growth has been in people ages 45 to 64, and then another 30% ages 65 and above. So mostly people are sort of middle-aged and older. We also see wealthier individuals. 41% of those households earn over $150,000 per year. Which is probably not surprising again to all of you, but I think something that might be a little bit surprising is that nearly a third of the growth since 2010 has been in households who earn less than $50,000 a year. So we see this in both seniors, which may be expected because folks are on more fixed incomes, but we're also seeing it people in those family years. And so where we're seeing growth and change really has implications for housing, and we want to keep that in mind as we're planning for the future. Go to the next slide. This shows just in a little bit more detail some of the information on kind of this high proportion of families. Again, this makes sense. You have great schools, you have access to the outdoors. There are a lot of amenities that are really attractive to families. But what we see is that the fact that you have this high proportion of families is actually meaning that you have fewer young adults here as a share of the community than what we see in the county overall. And We're seeing a lot of growth in the county and the region in young adults, but they're really not coming to Monument. So really want to think about how we can make sure that there's space for a wide range of households and residents in the community going forward. One thing to note that we did think was a little bit interesting, Monument is older than the county overall, but when we look at unincorporated Monument, so those areas outside of town boundaries, that population is even older than what we find in the town of Monument itself. So I've touched on this a bit, but Monument is a well-educated community. Along with that tends to come higher incomes. So higher median income in Monument than the county overall, and about 40% of households actually earn over $150,000 a year. You can see this in the chart towards the bottom right. Monument is the dark blue or black color. Not sure how it shows up for you, but you see a really high bar for 150K and more. So greater share of upper income folks than the county overall. But when we look all the way to the left, and that's the group that earns less than 50,000, you actually see a pretty similar share of people in that category as in the county overall. So again, I think just based on some of the conversations we had, this tends to be a little bit of an overlooked population in Monument. So we want to make sure that we're thinking about their needs as we plan for the future. Monument has about 3,600 jobs. It's a pretty diverse economy here. You can see the chart to the right, which shows all these different employment sectors. No one really stands out. Manufacturing is the largest sector, but we've seen growth in several sectors over the past several years. What does really stand out is that almost all of the people who work in Monument don't live in Monument. They commute into the town, and almost everybody who lives in Monument works elsewhere. And so we want to think about whether there are ways to kind of provide more opportunities for local workers to actually live in Monument. We have heard from businesses that attracting and retaining talent can be a bit of a challenge. And so again, just want to make sure that we have kind of the right programs and options in place for people who might want to live in Monument and who also work here. It is a very strong industrial market, as you all know. The location on I-25 is fantastic from an industrial perspective, and what we've seen in recent years is that growth of the need for distribution. We all shop on Amazon. We all like to have that next day or 2-day delivery for everything, and that means there's need for industrial space. There will continue to be demand in the future, so we just have to think about do we have space to accommodate that? What's the right location? How do we make sure that it is context sensitive and meets the needs of the community? We also thought about the retail market. Monument does have a lot of retail. You have over 1 million square feet of retail. Most of that was built in the early 2000s, and so it is a bit aged compared to some of the newer retail centers in the region. What we've seen in the past 10 years or so in Monument has really been smaller scale infill retail, smaller kind of strip retail centers, standalone retailers, and these really serve the daily needs of residents. Grocery stores, general merchandise, quick service, restaurants, gas stations, things like that. The momentum has really moved to Castle Rock and to North Colorado Springs. Both of those retail clusters have added about 1 million square feet of development in the past 10 years. So what you saw in the early 2000s, they've seen now in the 2010s, 2020s. And when we took a close look at where Monument residents shop, we do see that people really do shop locally for those daily needs, but then they're going to Castle Rock, they're going to North Colorado Springs for entertainment, for specialty retail, think Scheels, outlets, Costco. So as we start planning for the future, we really want to think about how do we continue to attract and retain those spending dollars in Monument? What do we need to do to support local retailers? What can we do to make these areas attractive and revitalize some of the existing retail so that we don't have folks just kind of shift their spending patterns and start going to other places?
All right, Fran, thank you very much. Incredible research that you guys did, and it's really going to inform some strategies that we're excited to be sharing with you as this project moves forward. All right, well, let's switch topics to another chapter of the existing conditions report and talk about transportation and mobility. Ruth, will you take the group through some of your findings?
I will. Thank you, Andy. So, I'm going to kind of go through this list so that, the connections for non-motorized transportation from east to the west side, that requires people traveling on busy roadways and some unconnected pathways. So this refers to people walking, people riding bikes, people riding e-bikes, and scooters. So currently there's not a really super strong east-west connection across I-25. This leads to kind of discouraging that use, except via automobile, right? And one of the concerns expressed in the surveys was traffic congestion. So not every trip could be an active mode. So active mode is those biking, walking, e-bike folks. But some of them certainly can be. And so doing our best to make those connections appealing to the largest group of people, which typically is people that are interested in doing that, but they're concerned. So they don't want to ride on busy roadways. They don't necessarily want to walk on busy roadways. They'd much prefer something that's protected or a trail. There are gaps in the sidewalk system that as time goes on, those gaps should be resolved, starting with key locations such as between neighborhoods, connecting neighborhood parks, trailheads, and then blooming out from that. The trail and bike route network should continue to be strengthened for sure. You've got some really good starts, and you've got some projects that are improving and adding bike lanes to facilities, but continuing that effort is key, not only for young people that are riding along roadways for recreation or to get to school, but also with an older population right now. This is a great time for people to be using those types of facilities, especially with e-bikes. That makes that so much more appealing. Bike paths along public roadways, right now bikes are on sidewalks, which may very well be okay, but which also might be considered a barrier for some people to do that. Like I said, connecting open spaces and natural areas, if you make those connections, that just leads to connecting the east and the west and allowing residents even outside of Monument to connect into Monument in an easier and desirable fashion. And then obviously coordinating with the Metropolitan District, El Paso County, Pikes Peak Association of Governments is really key to get, a lot of stuff done. It's key for towns across Colorado. And so those partnerships are really key for any type of mobility and transportation system, whether that's vehicular or these active modes.
Wonderful. Awesome. Ruth, thank you very much. And again, a lot of fun, cool strategies coming forward here to address those issues. All right, I'll take over here for a bit. I specialize, really focused in a lot of these growth and identity and regulatory issues. So let me just touch on a few of those. The community identity issue is no surprise to anybody in that conference room and Monument right now. This tale of two cities paradigm between the East and the West. And I think resolving that or making inroads towards resolving that is going to be a capital outcome of this comprehensive plan. So we're working on that. We just heard a lot about that in the public engagement process and in our own experiences. So looking forward to addressing that. And you may all already be familiar that the state of Colorado requires municipalities to have an annexation plan in place that goes out to 3 miles. So everybody just calls it the 3 mile plan. And monuments is basically unchanged from the 2017 comprehensive plan. It's been amended here and there and approved annually as it has to be, or biannually. But I'd really like to work with the town and the planning staff to just take a fresh look at it and just have a more progressive vision that reflects new realities around town. From a land use and zoning perspective, if you look at a town's or a community's zoning map, it's supposed to tell you the story. It's supposed to broadcast the town's vision. And right now, it doesn't do that as effectively as it could because of the way planned unit developments are approached and shown on the map. And not only are they shown wrong, or not shown wrong, that's not saying it right, but not only could they be shown better, but just as a tool, they address certain situations, but PUDs aren't the be all end all of planning. And so really a goal of a strong zoning code is to really reduce the need for them altogether. And altogether is kind of a pipe dream, but that's the goal. So we'll be working on that. And the note about the land use mix really reflects Fran's comment about the diverse the diversity of job sectors in Monument. There is just a really a wonderfully diverse mix of land uses, and that's good. A lot of communities, you've been to communities that can't boast that, and it's just not ideal. So Monument definitely has that going for it. A downtown master plan will be a key focus of this comprehensive plan, and an entire section of the existing conditions report focuses on the downtown. It has been a joy as a city planner to evaluate, study, review, read about monuments downtown. And so these are some of the key observations that we talk about in the existing conditions report. The Santa Fe Trail is a huge asset. No surprise there. How can we leverage it more? The town has done a great job. Cassie has done a great job establishing a great open space on the trail. There's 2 trailheads, one down on Baptist Road and one right downtown. How can we really leverage those more? Collaborate with El Paso County to say, hey, we want to do this. We want to really use this spot to its best advantage. And figuring out how to do that. And again, with the idea of making that stretch of that trail in Monument distinctly Monument. How many people come in like, what town are we in now? Okay, let's make sure that's never even a question. And I'm very excited that second to last bullet point, we have a few opportunity sites. There's a lot of areas in Monument that aren't susceptible to change in the next 10 to 15 years, the lifetime of this plan. But we found a few that could be. And so we're going to really dive in to evaluate and make some concept drawings about what could go here. What does something built with Monument's current design standards for downtown look like? Let's find that out. So we'll be exploring that. And just quick, read that last bullet point. I think maybe your anecdotal evidence aligns with this and you're like, yep, that checks, that checks. That so many of the visits to downtown Monument aren't from Monument residents. It's striking. So how can we change that? Obviously, people who live there are going to be a key source of energy and money to keep the downtown vibrant. So how can we flip the script on that? Okay, let's talk on infrastructure and utilities. Andrew, how do you feel about talking about this?
Apologies for previously the broadcast of the meeting wouldn't let me turn my mic on, but thank you again, and on behalf of V3, we're excited to be working on this project. Noah and I are. So when it comes to the existing conditions, when we're talking about infrastructure, utilities, and stormwater management, there's a lot of potential, but there's also a lot of need for coordination, is kind of what we found. There's a lot of projects going on, managed by multiple organizations, including private developments, as well as different economic districts that you guys are all aware of. But as we go through, we definitely see some major opportunities for helping improve the water supply, including, some of the things that are already being talked about in town by combining forces with some of the surrounding areas with the Loop project. And then the fee structure and funding, which is a major portion of this, where if you guys have regulations when it comes to water expansion or when it comes to stormwater management, having a fee structure and having available funding allows for enforcement of those. The word I'm looking for is why am I completely? Yeah, well, you guys
something up.
understand. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my apologies. But if you can enforce it, it makes it all that much more powerful, and then there's more money coming into the town of Monument, which allows for more upgrades and better maintenance over time.
Wonderful. And public awareness and education. We have found that that people you all know, I'm sure you know from your experience, and there's a button on the website, do I live in the town of Monument? And the first question the planning staff and many town staff members have to ask people who call is, do you live in Monument? Yes. Well, let me check. Because people truly don't know. They assume they do, but they don't. And so this comprehensive plan will have some strategies to help address that issue. Because I think it will relieve a lot of headaches and just increase clarity about who is providing services for the people in the Tri-Lakes area. Because there is, as you all know, and is documented, some confusion about that. So I'll close with some notes about parks, open space, and recreation. Another sort of hand in hand with the downtown master plan, Lakota or the Lakota team is creating an open space master plan for Monument as part of the comprehensive plan. So these are some of the key initial findings, and I don't think any of them will surprise you as appointed and elected leaders in Monument. One interesting thing was that as we look at growth and increasing the capacity, to look at more than just, hey, more swing sets, and more soccer fields. It's like, no, that those are there and those can always benefit from improvement, but let's think bigger. Let's build the park paradigm around more active and passive recreation and multi-use spaces. I think those are underrated. Those can get overlooked too easily. So we'll look forward to kind of delving into that. And then the governance structure can be difficult when there is a strong leadership hierarchy in place for oversight of parks and open spaces that can lend clarity, transparency, and efficiency to park planning. And it's heavily on the shoulders of one or two people in the town right now. And while that's not likely to change in the future, let's get a plan in place so that when resources and time becomes available to take a broader, higher level view and sort of have a chance to revamp it, that there's a plan in place to do that. We know where to go from here. Ruth already touched on the trail system, and I think one of the key things that's missing are simply connections. And there are town assets in place to build off of. There's town-owned property. There's creeks along which paths can be installed. There's even the bare bones framework of a connection underneath the interstate, but it's not usable and it's not sanctioned yet as a part of the trail network. But that would be an absolute game changer. So and this was brought up 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But it's a very difficult nut to crack, especially working with the CDOT. So these are all things we'll be looking at here. And then as a Minnesotan, the native Minnesotan, the bottom one there really resonates with me, and that's year-round public life and open space. The knee-jerk in the wintertime is to button up and keep inside. And I think that's missing a lot of opportunity, that's missing a lot of placemaking. And there are a lot of low-cost things you can do to help people celebrate the outdoors instead of hunker away. I mean, who doesn't love a bonfire? Who doesn't love a weenie roast, a marshmallow roast? Little low-cost, low-hanging fruit like that to help Monument residents celebrate Monument in the winter, in the doldrums. Like, no, let's get out here and have some cider together. And so, if park planning can facilitate that, then often we just see momentum grow really organically. The first bullet point there is to really look to the development community to contribute positively to the creation of parks, whether it's straight monetary donations or actual hard infrastructure or long-term planning. And then it's also saying, hey guys, as you do development in town, let's take let's take the long view on native landscaping and things that just don't require year-round sprinkling and further degradation of our water resources. So those are the key takeaways there. Again, we delve into much more detail in the ECR. I hope you have a chance to look at that. So I am going to turn off the presentation here, take a look at these bullet points, and let's join each other. Hi, everyone. That's it. So thank you for listening. I hope you found it interesting, and let's talk together. Mayor, you're kind of the biggest guy in the room right now. Most important by far. Start with you.
Actually, I'm not the biggest anymore. I've been slimming down.
Okay.
Well, nothing you said surprises me because I've been hearing it for 4 years. I think some of the biggest hurdles we're going to have is the tale of two cities.
Okay.
Because there's some very strong opinions from the other city that believes that because they have more people and more infrastructure, therefore they are the governance of Monument, and that's not true. So I think that that's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah, good thoughts. And yeah, I don't disagree.
The income part, I mean, I've got friends from all over the income range that live all over the zip code, and that doesn't surprise me at all. The job sectors, though, when you went through the employment sectors, these were employees based out of Monument today, correct?
That's correct. That's local employment within Monument.
It would be interesting to know where people are, what kind of employment people are going to.
Yeah, it's a really good. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, as a point of attraction for future employers in available acres of land that we have, we're trying to figure out how do we get some of those higher paying employers into Monument, because we're missing. There's a whole component of government that's missing. There's 5 military bases in the area, which has plenty of opportunity for contracted employment, and yet we don't have any of that here.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. And actually, we did take a look at the employment sectors that Monument residents work in, and there was a lot of overlap with the sectors that are present in Monument. So definitely some differences and obviously different businesses. And as you're saying, some opportunities to attract or build on some of those sectors. But we didn't see a huge divergence in, Monument residents are more likely to work in certain sectors, whereas the town is home to very different sectors. There was a lot of alignment there. So I do think it's thinking about how you can support and attract businesses to and show them the strength of your workforce so that you can have more people working locally.
So for me, I'll jump in here. So for me, we have a limited inventory of land. Even with annexations, we have a 36,000 acre conservation easement to the north, National Forest to the west, and Air Force Academy to the south, and it's pretty built out to the east. So with that, I would like to try to figure out how we maximize the value of what land is left over, because we do attract warehouses and distribution centers because of our location, but Colorado Springs also has an interstate running through the middle, and they don't have any of these. And it's kind of low hanging fruit for them to come here, but these buildings take up a tremendous amount of space. Some of the buildings themselves are 10 acres. And so I would like to figure out how we can take the land that we've got left over and even, for sure retail is better, but even if it's not retail, at least the value of the building becomes more. And the, even office buildings would take up less of a footprint and maybe go up a little bit, and the buildings would be worth more money and they would bring in better jobs. You know, I get really concerned about all of this acreage that these big buildings take up, and we need to figure out how to generate more revenue for the town in order to be sustainable.
Yeah, great thoughts. Well,
Anybody else?
any other comments?
I know. You're always looking at me.
Speak up, Laura.
Laura, the wallflower chronic. Come on.
She's no wallflower.
I don't know. I wasn't really that surprised by a lot of this, but I was very encouraged by the depth of this report and by the amount of research that went into it. And I think that was the surprise. Particularly when there was the comparison to Colorado Springs and unincorporated monument, if you will. I think that becomes part of our problem, along with everything that Mayor Pro Tem King said. We just don't know how to address it. You know, how do we figure out what to do with, how to house, how to generate more revenue for the town, and do those things so that they are married. And I don't, you know, it's a conundrum for sure. And I think this is going to help us at least have some kind of direction. And I appreciate the report. I really very encouraged by it and thought it was well done. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's awesome. A comprehensive plan isn't a book of answers, but it absolutely does provide a pathway forward to, in a lot of different ways. Absolutely.
And then you did touch a little bit about access between east and west, which I agree with you. It's a disaster at the moment. I like to bike and I never go over there because I don't want to get run over.
Right.
But there are some tunnels underneath I-25 and I know you and Chad talked about that, Dan.
Allegedly, we were never there.
Well, it was a conceptual thing.
Yeah.
But it would be advantageous if we could figure out a way to use those tunnels to get to the other side. I mean, we could make some pretty easy trail connections by doing that.
Certainly, probably less expensive than the bridge to nowhere.
Yeah, we're not doing an overpass anytime
Or
soon.
light rail.
No.
Andy or Ruth, can you, what I noticed is a lot of connections, but the lack of connections from east and west and its impact on our downtown. You kind of touched a little bit on that already, but I found that to be eye-opening, just hearing how a majority of people tend to leave town to go to work. Majority of people who are in town are not going downtown. But I think that's a story of connection and transportation and so on. And that was my biggest takeaway of the whole thing, because the rest of it I found to be just a story of who lives here and we're sending our money elsewhere because of connections. I guess I just did your whole answer, but can you elaborate on that at all? Sorry.
Let's take a stab at it.
So, you're 100% right. If you create those connections under I-25 and it's an active mode connection, it does not have to be a vehicular connection. It blooms as time goes on. So this is really key to creating the kind of environment that you desire for enlivening your downtown, I live up in Fort Collins, and I was the city traffic engineer back in the late 80s. And this wasn't a big bike pedestrian community. But in the last 40 years, because during plans like this, during comp plans and then transportation plans, an emphasis was put on those. And it has changed it from like night and day. I mean, there are people of all ages that bike to downtown Fort Collins who live quite a distance away, but they've got facilities that are that they use that are separated from traffic. So, making that a priority now, you're not going to see the results of that 2 years later, 3 years later, but you will see it 10, 20, 30, 40 years later. And some of those age groups that Fran was talking about, kind of the younger 25, I think to 30 was one of her categories. That really attracts that age group. For older individuals, which I include myself in that category, with traveling yourself or traveling with your grandchildren or your family. I mean, this creates those connections and that loyalty to that little shop downtown or that little restaurant downtown, because I know I can get through there. And then the other thing is the high school. It's right there on one side of I-25, and giving high school students the ability to ride or scooter to school sets that pattern of that as a mode that they're using. So, I mean, it sounds like this is going to solve all your, your concerns, but I think it is an amazing thing to focus on, because I personally have seen this change Fort Collins from I see bikes all the time now, and people walking all the time, and e-bikes and families. It just truly changes the dynamic of a community. And we don't have I-25 going through the middle of our community. So that's the thing that has to be overcome in a way that is beneficial. Dan talked about the Preble Mouse and how making that an educational type of experience potentially on either side of I-25. That's brilliant, because that does educate young, middle-aged, old into the nature and the environment. So it all really ties together, I think, in a amazing way. So I can't say enough about it. Sorry, I'm going on and on. So Andy, jump in.
No, I think that nails it. There's so many strategies that we want to look at to raise the visibility of the downtown, raise the recognition of the downtown, help people on the east side feel like downtown is actually their downtown as well, and that you don't have to go to AutoZone and Walmart to feel like you're shopping. Is actually a much better, great different experience elsewhere. And I think, my God, if we can lower the barrier of not having to jump in your Escalade, your Ford Explorer, your Lincoln Navigator to always go 1.5 miles, then that'll build some bridges.
So we have one underpass that goes under 105 on the Santa Fe Trail. And that's pretty much it. But if you go in, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Denver Metro Trail system up there, but you can go from Chatfield Reservoir in the southwest side of town, almost probably to DIA on bike trails that never touch a road. It's a brilliant system. And, if we can get some types of underpasses going here, I think that would definitely help.
Well, and I think to the point previously made about encouraging kids, for example, Fort Collins has the benefit of a college. And a lot of those kids don't have cars, so they have to have alternate transportation. So they're almost forced into it. We're not necessarily here, but maybe to encourage that type of behavior, we could do the trails, we could do the underpass, overpass, round pass, wherever we're doing it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Hey, guys,
And communities that do the rails to trails and that sort of thing, people use them. They become incredibly popular drivers of economic development and outdoor active recreation.
I think of Chad.
Yeah, I was just gonna add real quick. I think a lot of folks would be surprised to learn how many people use the Santa Fe Trail, which only runs north-south on the west side right now, but how many people actually use that trail to get to work, to get to school. I see them all the time, and there's a lot of people on there that are not out there performing physical fitness. They're actually using the trail to get somewhere, and I see a ton of them every day. So it's kind of happening now. And I'm absolutely 100% positive that that would expand if we had broader connectivity and ability to especially get from east to west.
Yeah, great notes. And I'll just piggyback on this. I know we're running short on time, but something we're exploring for Monument is TOD. You all know that as transit-oriented development. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at trail-oriented development. And certainly in here in the Midwest, we are seeing tremendous success with developments being designed with a focus to the local trail network, and it's hugely popular. So as we look at these opportunity sites I mentioned, and other economic development initiatives around town, will be focused on monument style of TOD.
There are grants for that.
It's in cycles. The mayor wanted to know if there was money for that.
How do you?
The development community puts forward they design it. They design the bike parking. They design the access, the safe access, so you don't have to navigate through a 140 stall parking lot to try and get to the trail. No, that's not how we're designing the site, guys.
El Paso, I talked to the development bubbas in El Paso County they have planned designated trails and monument, but obviously they don't have the funding. And that's what they told me multiple times. We don't have they have them, and the Fox Run Trail, that's a trail that's been planned out, and they only have like not even a mile or a mile and a quarter, or less than that. And they said the rest is, well, we don't have the funds.
They can use the RTA instead of building more roads. They can use it for trails.
So we're going to look at that during this next phase, but the private development community, if we have our plans well lined up and set, as they come in to make their investment, part of their investment could be the trail system.
Yep.
That means we're going to get pieces, and we shouldn't be afraid to ask for pieces and parts. We have that kind of on the east side of I-25, where we showed a trail going all the way up the spine, following the highway. But we haven't done a good job at requiring that trail to be built by each of the private developers. And there's a benefit to them to be connected to that trail, and they envision it, but we have to remind them that that's something we're looking for.
Each
And
one of the developments, they come in, they say, yeah, we're gonna have trails and parks and stuff, and it's only like it's focused on that one where they're building.
Right.
They're not connecting to one another or supporting one another, and
And we heard that during our meetings with the community, that their children, I heard a lot about going north and south just on the east side of the highway, where they didn't feel that they could let their child get onto a bike trail and work their way down to south to a school, because it just wasn't the connections weren't all there yet. I don't blame the developer for looking at the small pieces. That's their job. They're trying to make a profit or trying to build what they're doing there. It's our job through our comprehensive plan and through our codes and our capital improvement programs to really kind of bring this together as one coherent development called Monument. So we're gonna have to. That's what this document's gonna do. And when Andy gets into the visioning preamble or whatever, we're gonna talk a little bit more about where we're going. So where are we going?
Andy, in the presentation, I didn't hear, I might have missed it because I stepped in late, but have there been discussions or analysis done about redevelopment?
And not on our end. I think as a planner, when I think about what properties are susceptible to change. We didn't identify any, we'll call them infill sites. You know, think about the Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, name it, place that has been vacant and keeps switching out. Okay, let's look at a new land use there because that's not working. We really didn't find any infill sites to focus on. We looked at really, well, that's not true. I guess on Third Street and Front Street, there's that vacant piece across from the mall, that the shopping center. So that's one of the opportunity sites we're looking at. So that's the extent of it from my perspective. Fran, anything to add there?
Yeah, I would say at this point, we haven't done any specific analysis related to it, but as we're starting to think about strategies and action steps in the next phase, and Tony and I have started already talking about the importance of infill development. I know that it's really important to preserve land around the perimeter. There are concerns over too much sprawling development. We know that there's need for reinvestment in some of the aging shopping centers and in the downtown area. So really thinking about how to attract new investment and revitalize those existing areas is going to be really important for the future.
All right, Dan, I just had my closing comments about next steps. So I'll take a cue from you. Do you want to jump into that so we can get everybody out of there at 7 o'clock?
Yeah, let's do it. 6 o'clock, yeah.
6 o'clock your time, sorry. Looked at
Sun's
the
still
wrong
up here.
clock. All right. Okay, guys. So again, thank you for sitting through this. I hope it has been helpful to understand the work that went into this and what we, as the planning team, pulled out of the information. Because anybody can write a book, but it's what are you getting out of it that makes it stick. And so I hope we were able to communicate our big takeaways that we pulled from our research. So where do we go from here? As I mentioned, the end of phase 1 is this existing conditions report. Phase 2 is really the visioning stage where we start coming up with ways to address the things that we saw in the existing conditions report. That begs the question of, and what the hell's phase 3? Phase 3 is where we actually write the comprehensive plan. So the fun part of this project is really phase 2, coming up with the ideas. And then phase 3 is great because we actually get to work together on the plan itself and the implementation of it, which is a very important tool in and of its own. So a timeline for phase 2, we're looking forward to a visit this fall with the steering committee, and then another public engagement open house. I'm really looking forward to planning some sort of a scenario planning exercise so that residents and the public can get an idea of, hey, what does growth mean in these different scenarios? Let's kind of talk about it more and wrap our heads around something that makes sense for the town of Monument. So a lot of great stuff planned for this fall. Really looking forward to it. So those conclude officially now all my comments. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
So they're gonna disappear. But that's not because they're not working. They're actually gonna start putting together a bunch of things based on what they learned through the existing conditions report. They're gonna be bringing examples of this or that. We're gonna get to play game with them when they come back to us going, yeah, I don't like this, but I like this. You're gonna feel like you're at the doctor's office. And it won't be just for one area in town. So, I mean, you were talking about redevelopment. Highway 105 north of, I always get my streets mixed up, Third Street, up to Beacon Light Road. That's an area that could be redeveloped. I think they're being sensitive to the fact that they're still trying to understand what's important to us. And as opposed to calling out certain properties as something that just could go away and we could start over again. But that'll be our job. As we're going through the visioning, we're going to have you draw circles on, this is an area that we'd like to see something change. And then what we need to do is make sure that the property owners, the people who have their investment there, don't think that we're going to come down and tear down their building tomorrow. This is something that we're going to work with the private community to work with them to make the change. We're not going to, and at least that's my expectation of you guys. If you want to be more aggressive, that's up to you. But I think we're going to be trying to work with the private property owner to do great things and just show them what they could do without within the community's overall vision and plan. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that you're not going to hear from them for a while, but it's not because they're disappearing. We're going to be communicating and working through and getting ready for that next section.
Is there an intent or a plan or an expectation to also include market research of what's in general, what's driving development and what's because the last time we tried to do a development type effort 2 years ago now with Foreman, where we brought the out-of-state bubbas from Texas. There was market research in terms of what would, in theory, drive development here, as well as, like credit card sales, where they're coming from, what they're spending on, et cetera, et cetera. Is there something along those lines that we're going to look at, or is this independent of?
No, that's gonna be part of to a base level. I mean, but we need to understand our market. I think as they're going through the vision statement, they're gonna be are trying to figure out the vision of the community. They're going to be taking that and trying to see how real it is. You can only have so many dentist offices. So at some point we're gonna five more should be enough.
And like
So we're gonna have to look at where
Higher, that's right.
higher dentist offices.
Other shops.
But you brought it up really before. You said there's where the job, why are they going down there for jobs? They could be here. So we're gonna be looking at where the gaps are. How do we attract them? What attracts one of those businesses? I know we've talked about military or offshoot or adjacent to military, right?
Yep.
What attracts them to come up here versus being down there? So we're definitely gonna look at that. It'll be light though. If we really want to get in depth, then we're gonna have to, that's gonna be something different, but.
I think wave top level, right? I don't know that we really need, I don't know that it helps to get to the granular level. I think wave top just to kind of inform us. Because the other piece, like we talked about, rather than coming down from Centennial to Peterson, what if they have the opportunity Centennial to here, right? Midway point. So the folks at Peterson don't have to drive to Centennial, they drive to Monument. And then the guys at Centennial don't have to drive to Peterson, they just drive to Monument.
Well, and I brought up there's space to do that.
Absolutely.
And I've talked to Commerce about it specifically. Instead of putting industrial, I was very clear that we should be looking at the military adjacent contracting companies due to the proximity in the middle of all the bases, very close. I hadn't thought about the commute from people who are living on the other side of the gap, but it certainly makes a lot more sense that if you're going to brave the gap, you might as well end your journey in Monument. And we're building the rooftops. That was another thing that came out of those conversations a couple of years ago. Build the rooftops. And now that the rooftops are starting to place, we see reinterested parties of big caliber stores that want to come here.
Yeah.
So, but what we don't have is, a white collar workforce.
Correct.
I mean, yes, there's doctors and whatnot in the scope of those things, but other professional businesses are not showing up here, right?
Yep.
And mainly it's because we don't have the available space for them to move into.
Correct.
And I would love to see, instead of build to suite industrial space, I would love to see build to suite Class A office. We're on the trunk line for all the fiber that goes from all the bases all the way to Denver.
Yep.
And if someone were to build that out because there was an interest, maybe some of those big contracts that keep landing in Colorado Springs for high tech, aerospace and all that would rather come to Monument.
Yeah, and
I see a nod over there. I'm looking at you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See it as well. It's
Good.
I showed Dan
The developer in the room is not.
So there's a dearth of skiff space.
There's a shortage.
Yeah, there's a dearth. There's
a
yeah.
million square feet.
Yeah, and then, but when it comes to space and space operations, you need also a special access program facilities as well. which is a step above. So the Aspain increases exponentially with NSA and DIA. And that's why there's not enough of those. I showed Dan the Lockheed Martin Lighthouse Center for Innovation in Norfolk. That's another piece that we could easily be the place for, because
An
again,
incubator. for that
it's
kind of
it's an
stuff.
incubator where you can do war games, exercises, test and evaluation, modeling and simulation, all in the same facility at different classification levels at the same time. And then that breeds restaurants, because you're bringing in, at Norfolk, there was about 150 people from anywhere from Indo-PACOM, Lockheed Martin, and all the other services. And so now you need restaurants, and you need places to go to, hotels. So that could be an anchor piece. And then for the rest of us, the residents, it really grinds my gears that on the rare occasions where Anne Marie and I have date night, we're going south. It just really pisses me off that I have to dump my money into someone else's coffers.
It bothers Madeline too.
Yeah, and it's like, boy, I wish I could dump my money into the monument sales tax, so I can, help my town versus, frankly, a town that doesn't need it. But anyway, I didn't say that. But anyway, it's so my perception. So back to the market analysis, my perception is, I think this area is ripe for a movie theater, maybe a bowling, some sort of entertainment, right? I'm partial to Roadhouse because that's like 3-in-1. The Roadhouse Cinema by Las Vegas or Nellis, Nevada. Thank you. And because it's sports bar, it's theater, it's restaurant.
It's like Dave and Buster's kind of thing.
Yeah. And there's also, I think it's called Alamo up in Littleton, similar like a Alamo draft house, similar concept. So I mean, to me, but this is my perception, right? I don't know what the market actually says, and the developer has to follow the market, right? Not listen to Marco, right? So I don't know what the market is driving towards, right? So this is where the wave top, hey, right now the market is kind of driving towards X, Y, and Z.
So so you're jumping to the third stage.
Sure.
Okay, so, and that's where this vision is. So this vision process, we have to figure out what we as a community want us to be. Okay, and because we can have this aspiration for all these things to come in, but if we don't know what we want to be, they sense that. They don't want to spend, now I'm just going to point at you every time. The development community senses that. They don't want to struggle with what the community wants. They want a community that knows what it wants, can define it and say, if you do what we're looking for, you're in, and you can get that stuff done, because those businesses are also looking for for something they can accomplish and not struggle through. So this next stage is going to be visioning, where we're going to really break things apart and try to figure out what Monument wants to be when it grows up. And I hope the community takes that process very seriously, and doesn't mind getting into a debate with their neighbor, because not everyone's going to agree on this. But what do we want Monument to be? Then the third stage will be, how do we plug those things in so that we can get those businesses here? And I think we need to be questioning market all the time. I mean, why does that CEO want to relocate here? First of all, I'm going to guess that he or she's probably want to live there and build and incorporate stuff around close to them. So we're going to have to look at, how do we attract that investment here? How do we then get them to feel comfortable that we've got everything in place so that they can start that business here without minimum risk?
They're moving.
Has there been a,
Tennessee.
has there been a discussion about even a conference or convention center of sorts to attract businesses and corporations that are leaving Springs to go all the way up to Denver to utilize those facilities, or vice versa? And then if there was one here, and then that would draw more businesses that have options of,
I think it's all on the table, but where would you put them? How would you support them? Where's the transportation to get people to that conference center? Where do they park? How do they do stuff? So
instead of a huge warehouse, like having that with the eyes of view.
Tom Blanc would be happy to do something that works, that he has a return on investment and he can make money, without a headache. He has worked really hard to lock in a vision for his property that has the land uses that are in there. And that was based on years of discussion with this community. If you could show him another way to make more money and have a quicker return on investment and still be within his vision, I'm guessing Tom would come to the table. Brock would do the same thing. Robin and Brett would come in here with something if they knew that they can get it done and it met their bottom line. We just have to show them that this is what we want and make sure that we're working with them that it works for them business wise. I think a conference center could be really cool because it comes with a lot of other businesses that are associated with it. But is it in the downtown? How do we park it? How do people live? Can people live above it? There's all sorts of things you're going to have to consider as part of that. But don't let it go. I think it's a good idea.
One of the things that were brought up in one of the earlier slides was the factor of downtown maintaining its charm, because let's face it, when we're talking about the charm of the small town, it's not, Jackson Creek serves its purpose for a commercial corridor, and it's always going to be that. There's not going to be a quaintness to it. So the redevelopment of the downtown and maintaining the charm that people are looking for small town. If we go and do things that build up downtown, I mean, I think conference center could fit, but I think it would suit better either south or east.
I think that just enhances the feel of the cities
Well,
without a connectivity.
To me, they're parallel efforts, right? We need to connect east and west better,
Mhm.
right?
Brett's got a boring machine already.
Is that,
Well, I mean, it's Higbee,
yeah,
right? Higbee needs to go underneath. There needs to be a mechanism to get underneath, because we're not going over the top.
no, it's
You're not taking Higbee underneath either.
Well, not as a
not as a road, but
not
as a
road, but
as it converts to a trail,
Right.
you could easily do
We
that.
already have underpasses.
We do? Where?
So we're going in a path. I
Yeah.
want you to go and we have a process that we'll work through. I called this therapy at the beginning. I was serious. We're working our way through therapy. We're going to get to those things. I just take this next section here, make sure you bring your neighbors and your friends to help us vision. We're talking to you as well. I didn't mean to ignore you before, but they all need to be involved because they're going to let them bring the reality to you. They're trying to, they know what they can invest in. We can't invest in private property. We're very limited. That's not our purpose, but we're here to facilitate and get those things that the community needs.
Yeah, the west side's gonna be the small town feel. I mean, that's just the way it is. And if we want to maintain that, we'll have to figure out how to maintain the
But I-
downtown area.
But I think each can feed off of each other.
Sure, and they should. So the trail thing though, and how important that was to people, right? And the discussion that you brought up about the school, right, Lewis Palmer. Let's not forget we have another high school. And since we have our county commissioner sitting here, I want to make this abundantly clear for his ears.
Not just another high school, you have middle school.
Well, you have a high school, middle school, there's also an elementary school. That trail system that we pushed really hard for the developer to put in, and he flat out said, no, he wasn't going to do it. It's in the county now. The trails need to connect Palmer Ridge. I mean, these aren't even in the town. They're in the county, right? So Palmer Ridge, Lewis Palmer Middle School, and even working with Palmer Lake to get trails connected into the school system there. These kids need a safe way to traverse the Tri-Lakes area, right? And we need the county's support and contribution, and they need to take ownership of enforcing their master plan with those developers up at Monument Junction, or Monument Ridge East and West to make sure those trail systems connect. And if,
Can I ask two questions? Am I able to?
It's up to the mayor.
I mean,
Okay.
typically we,
Okay.
but
Sorry. I
no,
thought we were
I mean,
still in
we're,
discussion.
no,
We're about to shift to switch over to council, but ask me, yeah, go ahead.
No,
So you got the floor.
I'm part of the Investing in Front Street, so we're trying to help Old Downtown Monument elevate to the next level in the mixed use thought. And so 2 questions is, are we able to, as a town, lobby, if you will, if that's the right term, some of the businesses that you were naming specifically, or do we have any mechanism to approach them and say, hey, we'd love your business and lobby, if you will, rather than wait to be noticed? And then the second question I have, because I don't know the politics and legality of it, is if we have certain properties that are infill empty spaces, are we able to say, we really want, more restaurants? Can we label that? Or if it's a zoning, mixed use, whatever comes to the presentation, do you accept it if it's not what you thumbprint?
You're asking all the questions that relate right back to what we're trying to do here.
Okay.
So, and then we're also, the council's also, made a priority doing economic development work as well. So that's we're, at some point when we know what we want, we're gonna be able to, encourage, I'm gonna use that word as opposed to, incentivize. I'm gonna say encourage or bring those types of businesses here. We just have to figure out what we want, so then we can figure out what they want and do a matchmaking deal. But yes, you're asking the right stuff.
Okay.
And there's no lobbying, you just need to participate. Right?
well, I think she's gonna call the CEO of In-N-Out and say, why did you pick Tennessee instead of Monument?
She moved there, yeah.
But I hear New York City is right for the picking.
What?
Thank you, guys. Grab some pizza before you go to your meeting, and then we'll just get going. No pizza for you, though, this hearing.